All right. Greetings. Calling to order the meeting. It's a special work session meeting of the Board of Trustees, 5 p.m., October 22nd, but calling the meeting to order at 5:03. Clerk Perillo, can you please confirm the presence of a quorum?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mayor Shepro?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Giuliano?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Franco?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Hill?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Ugrinsky?
Present.
Thank you.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Attorney Moran and Treasurer Gafka are here as well.
Okay, good to see you. So let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have to do this again at the regular? Yeah, okay. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so I'll read off the agenda. The purpose of this special work session meeting is to review budgetary requirements and the process followed by our liaison, our Commissioner of Finance, and our Treasurer for building the approved Port Jefferson Country Club budget membership rates for fiscal year 2026, 2027. Actually, the fiscal year is 2027. So on the agenda, it says 2026. We're actually in 2026 fiscal right now. So, so we called this meeting to order because of questions that the treasurer was getting sort of out of process after the board approved the rates for fiscal year 2027. And because it was, it constituted a quorum of questions from trustees, sitting trustees. The guidance was to call a special meeting so that the process that took place to put the rates together and the actual proposed budget for the fiscal 2027 golf membership year was utilized. We thought it would be helpful to update the process based on the questions that were received, update the trustees on the process, and take it from there. And
Mayor,
so,
additionally, in conversations with the treasurer upon his return, there was a Facebook post that put out certain percentages and numbers that in his initial cursory review, and I'll certainly, as we go through this process tonight, as well as other things in that Facebook post that were just factually not correct. So because it was 3 or 4 different trustees trying to get similar information, it just made sense not to piecemeal it and let the public see that information and have it be available and recorded so the information can't get twisted or manipulated.
okay, thank you for that add-on. All right, so we asked Trustee Ugrinsky, who is the Commissioner of Finance and also the liaison to the Port Jefferson Country Club, to pull together this presentation. Is it connected to us? All right. Is there anything you'd like to say, Trustee Ugrinsky, before we get started?
No, other than I appreciate the opportunity to answer any questions that folks have. I'm a little surprised that the questions weren't forwarded to me as opposed to, as I would with a DPW question, I would provide that to Bob or safety to Kyle or school to, so, why they weren't referred to me, but I'm happy to do it. So let me know when you're ready to go.
Can we talk about that for one quick second, too? Is the liaisons and the commissioners of each of these areas in the village that are signed and accepted and a board approved, we all have our own responsibilities. And so out of due respect to the trustees who are assigned those responsibilities, it really should go from, okay, you have questions about, if I get questions about traffic law or issues with signage in the village, I send the signage questions to Bob, or the issues with trees, I send it to Bob. I copy Bob on emails that are related to Public Works Matters and Parks Matters consistently, and every single time. So I don't go to Dave Moran or Dave Melios or Public Works and say, you know, I have this problem from a resident, can you handle it? If I do that, I copy you on it, or I bring you into it to help resolve it. So that's how we run this village administration. If you don't like it, that's your opinion, but that's how we run this administration. And the fact that trustees are going directly to the treasurer to ask questions about the country club rates issue when they have the rates in front of them for several days before the meeting and can ask those questions. And we actually voted on it. It's not fair to the treasurer not to have his trustee in the room with him when this is being discussed, because the trustee liaison and the commissioner of finance is actually the fiduciary responsible party for this material. And then it comes to the Board of Trustees. So just saying, respect the process. Give the trustees their opportunity to have these conversations.
I didn't have any specific questions per se. I just wanted to sit down and go over the whole budget with Stephen. That's why I went right to Stephen to ask him if we could sit down and go over this. So,
The budget for
the country club budget.
this year's country club budget?
Yeah, this as well as the proposed. So that's obviously what we're doing now. So that's what, I didn't have a specific question. I just wanted to go over the whole thing. So that's why I went right
And the
to Stephen.
residents came to you with the questions?
Residents came to me with questions and decided
Okay,
to sit down.
so
Yeah.
that's when you can say to Zena, hey, I'm getting these questions from residents. Do you want to address them, or do you want to work with me and we can figure out how to address them? Because she's probably thought it all through already and worked it through. So for the trustee to talk it through with staff is taking staff time when it's already been done, potentially. But give her the benefit of the opportunity first. Okay. Zena?
All right, thank you. The first thing I'm going to cover is the process that we went through. It is, and I'll even back up, I don't need to remind you, Bob, but I think it's worth saying that this year's budget, everybody was, all the departments were part of the process. It was fully transparent. We all had opportunities to ask questions about the various budget items. I'm sorry, with the exception of Trustee Franco, because he wasn't a trustee yet.
You're speaking of the 2026 fiscal budget, which we are in the
I
middle
am.
of right now.
And
Okay.
let me just clear up one thing. When we talk about the fiscal budget, we're in 26, and we're starting to think about 27. For the purposes of the golf course rates, it's the playing year, so if you see 2026 rates related to the golf course, that's really part of the 27 village fiscal. So I'm sure that's clear as mud, but that is how we define it. Okay, so because we have to publish rates as early as possible for the coming season in order to do things like entice people who may consider joining to join, and also to provide opportunities for people to join early so they can get an extra couple of months of golf in as part of an early bird that we offer. We had the rates done by, Stephen, when did we finalize the rates? When did we vote on those? Actually, it's, okay. So that way we can offer that to the public. This is a bit different than some of the challenges we had last year in getting the rates even approved before sometime in December. So I'm pretty happy with the fact that we've gotten there. And so this is for fiscal 2027. Stephen and I worked with Jake Sullivan and, Pat Sullivan and Jake Anderson, and build the budget up basically from the expense base. And we looked at historic trends. We also looked at what is happening to cost increases, so fertilizer and pesticides. Unfortunately, many of those chemicals are coming from China, and they have gone up, shot up, in some cases 25 to 50% for the kind of chemicals that we need. So all of those expenses were looked at, the trends, and that's how we built the budget. We went back with that budget, back to Pat, Larry, Jake, reviewed it with them, made sure it included things. We had a bit of a delay because we had a cart lease situation we had to resolve prior to that lease being over, so that there was a delay, maybe of one working session for us to get that through. So with that, we built projected revenue for fiscal 27 then, and it is really, the main driver of that revenue is the membership fees. We do have some additional non-membership related revenue. So we used metrics to apply that. Metrics being like, what is the right membership that we should have, and how many outings are we doing? And we took into account some of the activities that Lessings is likely to want to do outings-wise. And the one outstanding item that is probably not fully baked yet is our social membership and the associated social events. That category is still being, that program is still being built out. And once we had that put together, we put that in front of the Budget and Finance Committee and had them ask questions. That was a pretty robust conversation, given that we've got a couple of golfers in there as well. From there, we went to the Board of Governors, and again, very robust conversation. Some things, they made recommendations, some of which were taken, some of which were tabled. And then the final version went to the Country Club Management Advisory Council, and which was actually one more slight delay because they were still reconstituting. Unfortunately, last year we didn't have the benefit of having all of the stakeholders in their seats at the time, so that added to last year's confusion. This year, we do. So with that, it went to Board of Trustees ratification. So that was the process that we went through. And, aside from numbers, are there any questions on the process itself?
So the Board of Governors weighed in on it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even though, and I'm just reporting what's on there, a member of the Board of Governors said that they didn't. So, but it definitely went to the
On
Board of Governors.
Facebook?
It went to,
Yeah.
went to Board of Governors, went to,
Yeah.
No, the
Just
Board of Governor
CCMC.
representative didn't say that she didn't weigh in on it. She said
Didn't set it,
they didn't set it.
didn't set it.
It wasn't there, but
It's
they
not,
didn't create it.
okay.
Yeah.
Bob, I
Yes,
think
that's what she
maybe
said.
one issue
It's another,
last year
like,
I
misinterpretation
know,
of
I'm just-
Facebook.
One issue that we had to deal with was a slight recalibration of the Board of Governors in terms of what their role was, because last year there was a vacuum and they stepped up and tried to fill it, right? But now we have all the folks that we need in the right seats on the bus, and so we're back in process.
Okay.
So we're just reminded of the post that says, responding to someone's post that said the Board of Governors set the rates. The response from the member of the Board of Governors said, the Board of Governors did not set the rates. The treasurer did. And I don't even know if it said the
But they
liaison,
review
but
it and they provided
Okay.
feedback on it, yeah.
in lieu of membership, like they're representing the membership. So that's the membership representation.
Did the Board of Governors vote to recommend anything?
We probably should have asked them to put it in writing, as we did with the CCMAC.
They did vote to endorse
But-
the early bird.
Yeah.
They said, we think it's a good idea to go with the early bird.
So it
Okay.
sounds like no. There's not
They
been official
voted-
recommendation from the Board of Governors.
They voted on the assessments. They were a big part of the golf cart lease renegotiation, which had an impact on the assessments. They also weighed in on the food and beverage amount. We initially came in with $100, and it was the Board of Governors who made a pretty compelling argument that it was
That was
it
CCMAC.
benefits.
That was Alex.
Yeah, so we left the bog with $100, and then
They just weighed in.
yeah. Well,
They didn't
she
vote.
was also present at the bog meeting,
She
so
was.
there was some
She was.
integration there. But yeah, so they all had an opportunity to provide feedback on pretty much every aspect of what we were doing, building.
CCMHC took a formal vote.
Yeah, and that's in your packets.
Trustee Ugrinsky, was the Board of Governors and the CCMAC provided with the projected financials, the expenses, profit and loss from last year, all that information before they made their vote?
Yes.
They were?
Yeah.
Okay. And so when we received the packet for the rate increase, did they receive more information than we got?
Are you saying you didn't have the budget information for next year when you got the rates?
I did not see it when we had in the work session, when we had that packet together. I didn't see a breakdown of the upcoming year's projections in it.
Okay, we'll go back and look at when that was distributed.
I appreciate that, thank you, because that would be helpful.
Okay. So just pretty quickly, the goals, we are a municipality, so, we run a flat budget. We also needed to take some urgent capital requirements into account in building that budget. The two that are already in there is the golf cart lease renewal and a 3-year plan for the golf cart paths to be done. We wanted to avoid having to borrow money to do that, so we've built it into a multi-year plan. The two things that have not yet been taken into account is some of the work that needs to be done on the irrigation system, and there is a potential opportunity to do some water recapture for use for irrigation on the golf course. These are and the infrastructure, but we are holding off until we've had the consultants come in and gotten their feedback. So what we tried to do is build in the things we absolutely knew needed to be done, and everything else will come afterwards. And one departure from prior years is we do have a note on the rates sheets that, if we have the need to do a reassessment at some point in the next year, that will be pushed through. So it's important for members to know that, just like any other golf course, if something happens, we have to figure out how to pay for it. We addressed staffing needs and the expense needs that were specifically provided by the superintendent of grounds and the head pro. We have started, this is an input to a 5-year build-out that we've started modeling out. So I would argue this is the first time that the golf course has ever had a 5-year fiscal plan that we're working towards. And no longer sort of, okay, budget season is here, everybody's got to crunch and get it done, as opposed to it being a well-managed process that doesn't stress the financial staff or the golf course staff.
Trustee, I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm just going back to look at the packet in response to Trustee Franco's question. What was produced, I think, for the edification of the board was the fiscal 2027 projected rates in an internal worksheet, which referenced all the changes and an explanation as to the list of changes from 2026
At
would
the
happen. And as the trustee liaison submitting that as part of the packet, the questions that stemmed from that, like we're addressing tonight, should have happened, I believe, between the time that the packet went out to the time of the board meeting, which is a full 5 or 6 days. And if we needed to hold the vote,
This is what you're talking
to not vote that night because those questions weren't addressed, but to save those questions to night of or 2 days after, it's kind of an effort in futility. I think the village clerk does a very diligent job, as well as the trustees, to get the information to be concluded in the agenda for that very reason. If we had all five board members all working on the same projects, nothing would ever get done, which is, as the mayor eloquently stated, is why we have liaisonships. So I think the key here is preparation, or not, and if it wasn't ready to be voted on, we shouldn't have voted. But we did, and I believe it passed 3-1. So let's use this as a lesson, I think, in the future, that questions like this should be addressed. We're addressing it, we're Monday morning quarterbacking the work that you did.
Weeks later.
And it's, again,
We're selling memberships right now.
and Trustee Hill's question of, hey, listen, we voted on these rates, and he asking the treasurer, hey, what were the increases on some of these things, so when the residents ask why they went up, I can answer it? Perfectly appropriate question to defend why the rates went up. To challenge why the rates went up a week later, what are we doing? Because you can't say the process wasn't transparent. We worked with 3 different agencies and produced a worksheet off of those findings. Now, if you didn't look at that and came to a meeting unprepared and then took 2 days later to prepare yourself, boo-hoo on you. Great work, by the way, Trustee Yurginski.
So Attorney Moran, you could vote on it and then have residents come to you and say, you know, there are some concerns with the rates, and you said, you know what? You want to do a deeper delve into this rate increase. So you then set up a meeting with the treasurer, and again, I don't know how, and I heard that, I'm just going to get a clarification. A trustee can't meet with the treasurer to go over a budgetary issue? I just want to get a clarification.
I can be 100% honest with you, Trustee. The
Yes.
part and parcel why we're doing it in this forum is because you put things on Facebook that aren't factually accurate. So it needs to be factually accurate so the viewers could see. The fact that you put in that same Facebook post, the Meadow Project, and your opinion of what happened, not what your colleagues on the board told you would happen with the Meadow Project, it's simply flat not true. So when it came up that the numbers the treasurer produced compared to your numbers also wasn't accurate, that's why the decision was made to do it here. And yes, if you're trusted with information, the information should be put out to the public accurately. And if you don't like those facts, you don't get to change them.
First, if there was an
You have
error,
to work on an even
Attorney
keel
Moran, if
with
there
all
was
your
if
colleagues.
there was an error in a percentage, and the treasurer and the trustee Ugrinsky stated to me on Thursday night, your numbers are wrong. And I said, oh, well, tell me how my numbers
The
are
whole
wrong.
post was wrong.
Let me finish,
Trustee
sir.
Franco.
So when she said to me, well, no, you'll wait till Wednesday and then we'll tell you. And I'm like, listen, that is what I mean. If we come to to the treasurer and ask for additional information to support what we think are factually accurate numbers, and we're told, no, wait, we're not going to meet with you, because of a Facebook post, I don't know that that's,
No,
pardon me, sir,
what
let me
was it?
finish. I don't think that that is how this administration should run.
Okay, and I appreciate your opinion. However, part and parcel with the rest of that same post, when you were given the facts by Trustee Hill, by the mayor, by Trustee Urginski about the Meadow project and how it got there, including myself, and still carried your version of the facts as truth, is couple that with some of the board having actual questions, like Trustees Hill's questions about how do we defend these numbers, where the increases happen, perfectly appropriate. Trustee Giuliano, same thing. But now that everyone had these issues, let's talk about how, give the trustee her day to present how she got to the numbers, and we already voted on it. But yes, unfortunately, some things, when you give certain people the facts and the numbers, and they choose to not accept them and just say things that are being held out as truths, why give you the access? And I believe that's kind of where this is going, where we have to do these types of things because you don't trust the facts that you're given from your colleagues.
So hold on. You're not saying that you're not going to provide me with the information that I
That's not my
request.
determination.
Okay, so that'll be, all right, so then let's move on.
Trustee Franco, I just want to say one thing, and that is, I feel it's a complete lack of professional courtesy to me to go to the treasurer directly without even speaking to me about it. So if you had come to me and said, let's sit down, let's go through it, I'd like the treasurer to be there, we probably could have worked something out. But the optics are that someone's got an axe to grind and they're using you. That's what it looks like.
So if trustee Giuliano and I request a meeting with the treasurer to go over the budget, that's an axe to grind? No, that's us trying to get a clarification on concerns that we potentially have. And I don't understand how that would be a problem.
Was that before your Facebook post or after?
That was after.
So you
After.
say it first, and then you ask for clarification
Well,
after?
I'm still waiting for someone to tell me how my numbers on my Facebook page. If they're wrong, well, clearly I'll say they're wrong.
What about the coupling of that with the mayor's comments that you knew weren't true, and the mayor didn't even vote on the golf rates? And then say you're not attacking.
How do you figure that's attacking, Dave, Attorney Moran? So if I have stated from the very beginning, I did not believe that golf course revenue should be diverted to a municipal joint venture with Lessings. You could tell me that you could, use whatever language you want to use. I don't believe that we should be doing that. That is not
You're
appropriate.
entitled to that opinion.
And exactly. So if
But you didn't offer your opinion. You threw darts at your colleague.
Dave, do we have a contract or an agreement with Lessings for the
Yes.
joint venture
No.
on that project?
No,
we don't.
and you made that point.
Let me finish.
You made that
Dave,
point at
let
the
me
last
finish.
meeting when you said you
And-
contacted NICOM.
And the mayor stated, after I asked several times, that she authorized that joint venture project without board approval.
You
That
call
is
it-
all factually approved.
You call it a joint venture, and then in qualification, and at the end of the day, after the mayor made that comment, Trustee Hill brought up the fact that it was discussed downstairs in the room, all your colleagues agreed, and that the decision was made before you took office. That fact doesn't fit your narrative, and you're continuing to go with it 10 days ago. That meeting happened a month and a half ago.
That narrative is the same narrative that any time you're going to do a project like we're doing on
appreciate your opinion. You made your point.
on municipal land, there needs to be a board vote on it, not, we all discussed it behind and we said it was
And
okay.
I believe my statements at the time was, there's a lease that governed that. We researched the lease, it was ambiguous. So in the best interest of the village and the taxpayer, this board, without you on it, made a decision to allow that project to go forward. And I get that you don't like it. But those are the facts, Trustee Franco.
So this board, prior to me
Where on
being
your
here-
Facebook post does it
I'm
address
asking you a question.
your
Attorney
opinion
Moran.
about joint
This board
ventures?
voted on the Meadow project to divert resources from the golf course to the Meadow project.
That
You
is
use
a
what you-
misrepresentation.
So give me the correct
The
representation. then.
correct representation is that the superintendent is responsible for the country club campus, which includes the land that we're discussing as part of the Meadow project.
Trustee
Now-
Urgenski, couple that with the lease that says that Lessings is responsible for the perimeter of the building and it is not defined.
Right. And I may also highlight the fact that we are heading into a negotiation on this. We have not yet defined what the village wants in terms of what do the residents want from that particular project. And anything that we put out now is going to impact those negotiations. And that's why we should not be having these conversations in the open forum. We should just define what the village residents want and then have that negotiation and then finalize a contract. But right now, you're helping us negotiate against ourselves.
Can we move on with your presentation?
Sure. Okay. So, input from strategic and master planning reviews. This is a 2B that is already in flight. We've looked at the golf membership categories. There were some changes that were made to those. We've spent a lot of time looking at usage by category. So, for example, how much time are modified spending playing on the weekends, right? Used to be that it was just a weekly, versus a full week. So all of those things are taken into account. Our capital needs, obviously. Number 5 is the big one. The impact of the costs of goods and services has gone up radically. I have had conversations with GMs at other golf courses who are actually quite impressed by what our grounds crews are able to do on the budget that they have. On top of that, we've got the ag report that basically also said that what we are charging per round, or the cost per round, is easily $20 to $30 less than any other course, like ours. So.
Pardon me, Trustee Ugrinsky, are you saying for guests or for membership?
No, if you take the full membership numbers and divide the cost of the course to arrive at a cost per round, not per person, but just per
rounds
round,
played, yeah.
per human.
What, if you don't mind me asking before you proceed forward, what would the number be then, based on the 20%? How would that affect the membership rate?
You're saying the comparative that we are $20 per round lower than?
Yes.
20 to 30? That translates into another $1.5 million of additional dues that would be required in order to bring us up to that per round cost. We did change a couple of things. So the assessments, there seems to be some confusion as to what the assessments were used for last year, but I think that we have completely, we're doing this by the book this year. That assessment number is completely capital leases and debt, which is exactly how it's supposed to be. As I said, the social membership category is still in process. We've changed guest policies on the corporate memberships, which used to not restrict a given guest to 6 rounds. That is now policy across the board. And on the non-golf revenue, we're working with Lessings, for example, on what their agenda is for outings for next year, so that we can sort of estimate that. And so those were all the areas that we went fairly deep on. And I mean, I'm happy to walk anyone through all of that. So. And these are the rates that we approved in the last, Board of Trustees meeting. So I am fairly confident that, we'll come close to those numbers. There are a lot of things that are up in the air because we're going to be going through that analysis with Kemper, who, by the way, do manage a course like ours. And when I say like ours, we fall into a very strange category, right? There are maybe between here and like Massachusetts, there are only 3 or 4 courses that are municipally owned private country clubs. So we've been speaking with all of them and saying, what are their best practices? And as I said, they've been here, they've seen the course, and they're pretty impressed by what we've been able to accomplish on our budget.
Trustee Ugrinsky, the 25-26 fiscal year for the golf course, are they on pace to hit their budgetary projections? Are they going to lose money? Are they ahead? Where are they?
Sure. So we meet regularly to review expense lines. And in the expense lines where we're going to blow our number, like chemicals, we go through and we figure out where we can shave it down. I don't make those decisions, right? The supervisor, the ground supervisor and the head pro work collaboratively to figure out where there's give and take so that we stay flat.
So the question is, are we on
Yes.
pace to be flat
Yes.
this year?
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah,
that,
and we're going to manage that to the last month of this fiscal.
and that's factoring in the Tom Natola salary that wasn't used for Tom.
That's
this year.
right, and we built it in for next year because we
Okay.
expect to have one. But again, we're going to wait for Kemper to weigh in.
Understood.
Okay.
Could you highlight some of the major increases? Which is, I guess, how we came up with the new rates for the
Sure.
2027, so.
Actually, Stephen, you put that analysis together if you have it handy, or even off the top of your head, because there were some pretty big ones.
Yeah, so, I mean, when we were building out the budget, we looked, as Trustee Ugrinsky said, at all the trends and our payroll projections and our maintenance projections, and we tried to come up with realistic numbers to also stay within what the state mandates, that we try and keep a flat budget and not have any wild variations that can't be supported. So our payroll budgets, those were a major increase through both the maintenance and the pro shop side. We just had a new union contract that was approved that affected that, and also need to build in potential money for any non-union personnel that could be coming down the pike, and also potential part-timers that may need increases to their salary. Also trying to bring the grounds crew seasonal, which they've needed more and more of late because of the weather conditions, bring that salary line up. So that was a major increase. The chemicals, we tried to bring up 10%, 10 to 17% in total for the chemicals. We brought irrigation up. In this year's proposed budget, when we built the rates, we added in the three-year cart path possible project that could potentially be done in-house by staff, adding another $50,000 to the budget there.
Pardon me, Stephen, for a second, I mean to
Sure.
interrupt. Do we have a projection on or anticipated cost of that 3-year project?
About $150,000 is a very, very rough estimate, but
understood.
we're trying to protect the budget if we're going to proceed with that and try and do it in 3 stages.
Without borrowing money.
Without borrowing money, without affecting the assessment, without trying to go through it and just raise costs exponentially down the road with interest payments, so on and so forth. So we tried to build that in. That was a recommendation from the superintendent that we needed to try and do that. So we built that in. Our medical costs are going up. Our retirement costs, we're expecting to have, a built-in 11 to 13%. It could even be higher than that because the state's looking at some major increases with their retirement funds based off of potential federal funding and shortfalls, there at the state level. So they may hit us with a pretty high percentage there. So retirement, medical, payroll. We added in money for a little bit more equipment, tried to restore some lines that maybe were brought down just so that we could keep the budget in line the previous year. So those were there. There was a major increase in unemployment benefits. The seasonal workers, when they no longer work for us in the winter and they're not permitted to work, that we have to pay for that unemployment benefit, and that's something that has gone from what was zero maybe 6 years ago to $60,000 this year. So we had 20, we brought it up to 60. So that was another major increase in those expenses. So those are all some, I'm kind of shooting off the top.
Well,
Insurance.
Yep.
Yeah.
Insurance is what?
was a big one.
The insurance
How much?
increase, that was, that's gone from what was not budgeted enough 3 years ago to 19,000 to 120,000 for this upcoming year. So all of those add in and they just add up. There's nothing going to any of, we tried to keep all the discretionary spending that we could at a minimum, just like we do for the general fund, but we need to give the staff the tools that they need. And that's why we met with them multiple times, like, is this gonna be enough? And we had multiple scenarios where the superintendent or the head pro said, no, we need a little bit more here, we need a little bit more there, that's not gonna be enough. When we get to the budget season, maybe we can shift things around because things can change between now and January when we really get into it for building the actual budget to be adopted. So those are the highlights.
Can I just
So
add?
there were some additional aspects to those conversations. We are looking across, not just within the golf course, but across the golf course and DPW for vendor optimization, right? So you'll note that equipment repairs are fairly expensive, and we have some buying opportunities or looking at leasing that will provide some, let's say, lower costs, right? The groundskeeper has now started buying chemicals differently in order to hit spend maximums that immediately provide us a 20% discount, right? Only because we are buying in different timing cycles. We're looking at, for example, getting him. We've gotten him an account that will enable him to get some volume pricing benefits for things that they consume constantly. We're looking at what DPW and the golf course use and seeing if there are places where we can optimize that. So it's not all about dealing with expenses going up. It's also taking a look at how can we operate differently than we used to in order to, start shaving away money that we could be saving.
Stephen, can I ask you a question? So the 25-26 year, we're having a 16% increase at the course, correct?
There's a 16% rate increase going for the adopted rates for
Correct.
next year.
And in
Fiscal 27.
Fiscal 27.
yes, and the prior year, the rate of increase was?
For just the golf rate, 7.5%.
It was 7.5%. Now, is that factoring in the $300 assessment that was added on?
The assessment
Yes.
that was added
Are we
on-
going to do this
Right.
again?
Mayor, I have a
mean,
question.
this is
exactly
dues
what I mean. I
versus
have
assessment.
I have a question for the treasurer. I'm asking the treasurer a
We've
question.
answered this question
And
15 times,
the membership
trustee.
still has to pay the $300, whether you say it's a
Yes.
7.5% increase. It's kind of
It's your math.
disingenuous to
It's
say.
Franco math.
Well, Franco math, I
But
want
it's
to try and
not-
get
it's
the,
not-
I want to get
it's
the
not
GAFCA
municipal
math. So if GAFCA math says you raised the rate 7.5% plus a $300 assessment that wasn't in place the year before, what is that percentage of rate of increase? That means everything went up.
We had
Right?
capital leases that
And
weren't
so
in
the
the prior years.
16% rate increase that you put in this year, it factors in the $790 assessment. So the year before, are we saying that we're not doing that now?
The 16% only factors in what was charged on the golf rate from the previous year to the current year. The assessment change was $50 from last year to this year.
Was that not incorporated into the 16%?
The assessment did not increase 16%. It wasn't part of the 16% increase.
Either way, I think what the trustee Franco was trying to get at, saying that there's a difference between the dues going up 16% and what the total costs of a membership goes up, which would be more
Which I
when you
understand.
include
Which I
the
understand.
assessment.
That's, I don't have that number in front of me. I don't have that. What did it go up from 24 to 25? I don't have that number in front of me. The total cost.
Would you be able to get
So
that for
I
us?
think we can all acknowledge, though, that by leaving out total costs, we're a little bit hiding the ball on what the total cost percentage increase is for a resident member. I mean, that's what we're most concerned with.
Well, food and beverage is flat year over year, so that's not it. And, we can look at the debt and capital lease change, and we know what that was, $50 due to the new, the cart leases. But the bulk of the change is really contained in the dues. If you take out the $50 and you assume that food and beverage is the same, then the 16% is the change.
Right, but if it costs me $100 year one, and then year two, it costs me membership, dues, assessment, everything else costs me $125, that's a 25% increase out of my pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, it might be, dues might have gone up 16%, but then there was assessment, so,
I can only, we, in building up the budget, can only adjust the dues.
So
Right.
I
when,
understand that.
That's
When
the
the-
only
I
number we
understand
have
that, but-
control over.
and when the bond is paid off, the assessment,
Mhm.
right, in how many years is that gonna?
3.
2020, 2028, 2029?
Yeah.
3
Fiscal
years. Yeah,
2028?
there's 3 more years of it.
Okay, then the assessment comes down. So it's not a dues rate
Right.
increase. It's an assessment, and the assessment falls off after a time.
But that assessment wasn't in place the year before. So when you raise the rate 7.5% and then add in a $300 assessment, that's an overall increase to the membership, no matter how you want to couch it. Again, so to say it's
They're paying for the
pardon me,
cost
it's
of
disingenuous to say there was
being
a
a member.
7.5% increase when you know that there was a $300 assessment added to that.
Well, when
So
we
if you're
talk-
going to talk about hold on, again, you're going to split hairs. I think
No, no,
Trustee
what I'm
Hill
gonna say
explained it
is
as
six-
succinctly as it could be
Here.
said.
Is this a hill you're willing to die on, man? I mean, honestly, like, I did not have control over the assessments last year. I wasn't the liaison during that period of time. So, like, it's history.
But not having control over the assessments is only further reason why
That's why I'm
the
correcting it.
increases-
It's
I know,
now.
But, yes, but regardless of who has control over what the assessment fee is going to be, that is the total cost to the membership, and that's why we should be conscious of
Absolutely.
that in any increase on the due side. If it went up $20,000 in the assessment, we wouldn't say, oh, well, that's not our fault. It's going up 16% on the dues. Like, we have to.
I agree
It's
with
not
you.
just
I-
willy-nilly. Like, that is
I
a
do
part
not
of the whole
disagree.
equation. So I think
I do not disagree.
being concerned about it is valid. So.
Sure. I will still say that this is the best golf deal, anywhere on Long Island. And in fact, it's, for a non-resident, it's a lot less expensive than some of the other courses that are like for us. And look,
The costs are the costs.
this is being broadcast, right? So this is being recorded, and I want to go on record as saying, if there is a resident, like, I'm the one who is the liaison to the country club. If you have a question, please come to me. If I have if I meet somebody and they have a DPW question, I refer them to Bob. So I am available. I am happy to sit. I probably know these numbers almost as well as Stephen does at this point, and I'll have that conversation with anyone.
So the simple answer is the total cost went up 13.7% from 24 to 25. The total cost.
You know, thank you for doing the math
You're
for us. But, you know, just I think taking a kind of 30,000 foot view on this, when I emailed asking for the justification of the rate increases, like this sheet would have been a perfectly acceptable response, and I don't understand why we I don't understand why we had to have an entire special meeting to get this sheet. Like this could have been emailed to us any day last week. So it's a little bit frustrating that that didn't happen.
I agree with you, Trustee Hill. However, it took us, in person, it took us 20 minutes or 45 minutes for you to articulate, and to rightfully say what you wanted. I think once it was said the right way, it clarified it. I think the message and the questions from the various sources is why it got muddied. So once you've said it, I think you heard the trustee agree with you, and I think now we all agree with you, that this document would have satisfied that need, but it's how the questions were presented initially. And everyone, you know, we just saw it this evening, as you know, everyone trying to defend the various positions. Stephen's trying to defend his numbers. I can respect that Trustee Franco, how he got to his numbers. Now that you've said it the way you've said it, I get it. But even in person, it took 45 minutes for everyone to get on the same page.
But that was my
Right, but
original,
my
my
question-
original question was,
yeah,
can
my-
we go over the budget?
My question was,
And that's what we did.
what were the
Right,
cost
but that-
increases that
I agree
justified
with you,
the dues
Trustee Giuliano. I
increases,
agree with you.
which is exactly this piece of paper. So
Agreed.
it's, again, it's, you know, I really don't think it's acceptable that we had to wait a week for something that was already available. And truthfully, this should have been part of the, what was included in the dues, like the entire you know, for when we talked about this at the work session. And I felt uncomfortable voting on it at the time, but I trusted the CCMAC and the Board of Governors. And truthfully, I'm just concerned that the Board of Governors, who is meant to represent the membership, is not actually soliciting feedback from the membership. I'm not a member. I'm not on the course. When I see someone in town, I don't know if they're a member or not, truthfully. So I depend on the advice from the Board of Governors. And we have folks who are on the Board of Governors saying, we weren't part of this, or however they phrase it exactly. They didn't develop the rates, but it is expected from my position that the Board of Governors is going to solicit that feedback from the membership and help us make those decisions, because truthfully, the amount of time that we collectively spend on the country club is scandalous. There are so many issues that affect the wider part of this village that I personally don't feel like I have the time to go solicit the only 250 resident members of this club. So I depend on the Board of Governors to do it. And I think the crux of the problem is that the Board of Governors is operating without bylaws, and there have not been elections since they've been instituted. And I think that if we had elections every single season, it would be on them to get reelected. The way you get reelected is get feedback from folks. So I really think going forward, I don't care what happens next at the country club, but it needs to be that the Board of Governors has their bylaws in place and elections scheduled. I don't say they have to happen, but they need to be scheduled, because I don't feel comfortable taking their advisement. I don't think is actually reflective of the membership at this point.
How do you know they didn't talk to members about the rates? How do you know they don't talk
Because
to
we
members
have
about the
members-
rates constantly?
Because truthfully, I don't. But that is the problem, right? So when we have
Members
residents,
talk about rates all the time together.
Sure, but when they email us after, why did this happen? Clearly, those members did not have discussions
They
with the
didn't
Board of
seek out
Governors.
their Board of Governors, or...
It should be on the Board of Governors' responsibility to seek out
So I don't
from-
disagree
from
with
the
you.
members.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but what I'm saying is, everybody,
Act if that doesn't happen.
everybody
Of
on
course
that
we do,
Board of
but I
Governors...
think part of it is that there haven't been elections for 2 seasons since we've had the Board of Governors.
And so, you know, we're not getting ahead of the consultant coming in and seeking all the information that helps us actually come up with those bylaws and also set us straight in the areas of operational guidance and strategic planning. That's what this is about. Didn't want to get ahead of that.
Either way, we had elections 2 years ago without these consultants, so I think it's important that we
Kyle,
hurry
a
up
lot
and
went on.
happen.
You know, the country club has not been addressed in a strategic planning way ever. So, not to say that's a bad thing, I'm just saying this is what we need to do. And by voting on the Kemper contract last meeting, it was the right thing to do because it's needed. And that's why we did it. I mean, that's I've been advocating for that for a while. And I'm glad that we voted on it to get it done.
I think that your statement, Trustee Hill, about, trusting the fact that the Board of Governors was involved in, the Budget and Finance Committee was involved in review, the Board of Governors was involved in review, the CCMAC was involved in review. I agree with you. We should trust that. What I'd like to understand is all of the questions that you guys are getting that never make it to me. How am I, why do you take it upon yourself? I'm not sitting there telling folks how much DPW is spending on stuff. I have no idea, right? I mean, I do because I'm the Commissioner of Finance, but from a functional perspective, that's a Bob question.
But I copied you on the email that I sent to the treasurer.
Yeah, you copied me, but none of you have come to me and said, this person, this resident has this concern, help me answer it. Or will you take this and answer it, right? How am I supposed to address?
Once again, all I wanted was this sheet of paper.
We already talked about
Yeah.
that.
And truthfully, they asked why I voted for it, so.
Because
You
as you
trusted the
said,
Board of
Yeah.
Governors?
members of the
CCMA?
CCMAC are members of the golf course, right? Members of the Board of Governors are 9 people constantly on the golf course, always talking to their fellow members. Yes, they do. And perhaps the one member that or I don't know how many people came to you with that, but yeah, we have a 6 o'clock.
Yeah, we do.
So,
Are we still on board for the Board of Governors, some sort of, within 4 weeks, some sort of bylaws or anything?
Bob, as I just said, Kemper is
Right.
starting next month. We're having a plenary meeting with them. I didn't say this. We're having a plenary meeting with them this week. And we're going to launch that process. And the process, you've all seen the process. It was in there, right? We can all agree that we've seen their process, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
What they do for what they're contracted for. They interview everybody. And they identified all the stakeholders, members, residents, everybody, Board of Trustees, CCMAC, BOG, all the governing bodies. So we're starting that. So do you want me to
No,
say,
but
yes, we're going to do this right now?
Well-
Or do you want to wait for Kemper to come in? and
We're
weigh
not
in?
going to start
At the
with a
last meeting, it
white
was said
sheet of
4 weeks.
paper,
So I was just wondering if that was,
4 weeks what?
that we would have
the engagement.
something for the
That's,
Board of Governors.
it's the Kemper engagement duration? Is that what
No,
you're
it's
asking?
The bylaws for the Board of Governors.
Yeah.
No,
I
we
think-
can't have that in 4
Okay,
weeks.
because,
Well,
No,
that's
that's what
what
was
was
said.
said 2
Right.
weeks ago.
that we would have it in 4 weeks?
yeah.
Yeah,
Bylaws?
Yeah.
Did I say that?
pretty sure.
Yeah,
No,
but
and
I
that
think
was- I think that was
probably because of the assumption that Kemper would be providing guidance on it, and we would
Again,
be
we're
able to
having a-
act against it.
We're having a
Has the
planning meeting
Board
with
of
them this week.
Governors reached out to the membership stating this is going to be the date elections are being held? Have they started that process yet?
Again, we're waiting for the Kemper Sports Engagement to actually guide us on governance and bylaws. Is this an adjournment to this meeting? Do we,
I think so.
so do we have to vote to close the work session? Okay. All right. Do we have a motion to close the work session?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 The work session is closed.